My name is Caitlin Roper. I'm a writer and activist, campaigns manager at Collective Shout for a World Free of Sexploitation, which is an Australian grassroots movement campaigning against the objectification of women and sexualisation of girls in media, advertising, and popular culture. When I envisage a world without rape, what comes to mind is joy and freedom. I think about the freedom of women and girls to actually live and to live without shame, to not have to restrict their movements and make themselves smaller, always anticipating the ever-present threat of rape and limiting their freedom. I love being out at night. I love to walk and run at night when it's cool and when it's still and quiet and there's no one really around. There's all these things that I think, I would love to do this, the things that I could do if in a world without rape, in a world where I was actually free and other women and girls free to just live our lives and be in the world without this always hanging over our heads. Sometimes I fantasize about the things I would love to do. I would love to go on a weeks-long hiking trip just by myself, camping every night. But right now, that feels like a bit of a fantasy because all the considerations for my physical safety, these are things that I have to think about and weigh up rather than just be free to pursue the things that I want to do and to live my life completely free in the way that I want to live it. I think about what it would be like to actually live in the moment without always having some part of myself activated, switched on, always being vigilant and always just having to factor in personal safety. It's sometimes difficult to let myself dream too much about a world without rape and the beauty of that world and all the possibility because there's so much grief over the world that we actually inhabit. And of course, for many of us, even most of us, the greatest threat to us is from those men who actually say that they love us. So a world without rape. The most important steps, to me, that looks like starting with men and boys seeing women's humanity rather than seeing us as objects or as conquests or as existing for their use and entertainment. I think a lot of men will say, of course, I see women as human beings, not objects. But if men truly saw women as human beings, or at least in the way that they are human beings, and they couldn't be aroused by our sexualized abuse and degradation. They have to actually see us not as fully human in order to justify that. So starting with men and boys seeing women's humanity, the way I think we do that, or some of the key ways that we need to do that, is by addressing pornography and the sex trade. The sex trade is premised on the notion that men are entitled to sexual access to the bodies of women and girls, and that women and girls are objects for men's sexual gratification. And many survivors regard their experiences in the sex trade not as work, but as paid rape. And then pornography, which is filmed prostitution, is rape on tape. Both pornography and the sex trade are rape in and of themselves, but they also normalize and legitimize men's sexualized violence against women. So pornography is anti-woman propaganda. It's also the primary form of sexual education for young people. And we're seeing firsthand the catastrophic results of what happens when boys are exposed to this violent, brutal, dehumanizing, cruel content. These depictions, these glorified depictions of male violence against women in pornography. Acts of sexual violence made popular in pornography, like strangulation, are now commonplace. There's a growing number of cases where men who kill women claim the women consented to sex so violent that it resulted in her death. And we're also seeing this being accepted as a defense in legal cases. Right now, we're seeing the case of Dominique Pellicot in France, who's on trial after inviting more than 80 men to rape his wife, who he drugged, while he filmed the rapes as pornography. And this year in Australia, we've had new research come out showing that adolescent boys are now the most common perpetrators of child sexual abuse, with access to and consumption of pornography being cited as a significant driving factor. So these are just a few examples. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the ways in which porn not only is, but fuels rape and sexualized violence against women. In order to stop rape and to see a world without rape, we have to end men's paid rape of women and girls in the global sex trade. And we need to identify pornography as the filmed rape and abuse of women and hold the industry to account.